Whatever you see in the YouTube in regards to creating AI agent or creating AI SaaS is a demo, whether it's on my channel or whether you see it on someone else's channel. So if you are trying to build a production grade AI agent or a production grade SaaS or AI powered SaaS just by replicating what people are doing over the videos in YouTube, then I must warn you that you are going to empty your pockets very soon, especially as soon as you go live with your application or with your AI agent. And one of the reasons is because of those pesky AI API keys. If not handled properly, that can literally empty your pockets, and you will see hundreds, if not thousands, of such examples online even today, if you go to Reddit or some other places. Now in this video, I am going to actually take you through why the AI API keys are not secure and how you should actually use the AI API keys properly so that you do not risk it all when you're creating your AI agents or your SaaS production application. I initially thought to keep this video as part of my SaaS course, but then I realized I should actually talk it publicly using my YouTube channel, as I would really like to help you to launch your production grade AI agent and AI SaaS with a proper control in place. So let's go to the screen and let's explore what this is all about and why I am making such a big claim. So see you onto the tutorial. Now you are into the tutorial, and as you can see, it's a blank screen. Don't worry, I'm going to draw a few things here. It's not already prepared, and I'm going to actually explain you step by step as I draw things. One of the things that I really wanted to discuss in this particular video is about the API keys. Now, traditionally, because I come from cybersecurity background, I often think about this, that whenever I create an AI SaaS application, is it production ready in terms of security? And when I look at the API keys, those are really not secure. And why I say that? I know if you are from this background, you would say, hey, API key have such high entropy. Why do you say that? The reason is because the different AI API keys what different provider provides to us are not an authentication mechanism. So these are not authentication mechanisms. What I mean by that is AI API keys are just a shared secret. That means it's more like a cache. Whoever gets it, he can use it. So that means when you use, let's say, OpenAI and call their API using the API keys, with the same API key, you can call it, and with the same API key, someone else can call it. That means there is no authentication mechanism in it. It is just an identification system. So when you use an API key, it just identifies who that API key usage should be billed to. It doesn't actually verify who that API key belongs to, which is what authentication is meant for. So when you log in into a website, you use authentication mechanism. You give your user ID, password, or whatever multi-factor that identifies you as yourself, and that's how the website will show you the prompts. However, API keys are shared secrets. That means if I get your API key, I can use it. There is nothing that can restrict it, right? So that is why I say that API keys are really, really risky, especially if it is a production application, because if it is a demo application, if it is something that you are trying to build in your own desktop application or in your own local system, you will use API key. You will probably do some prepaid payment. There will be some restriction in place. Of course, even if it gets hacked or something or leaked out, it can maximum damage you up to whatever amount you have prepaid to the provider, right? But if it is a production application, that means it's far more likely that you are going to have much more limit set, much more prepaid that you have loaded into the wallet of, if it is OpenAI or if it is an open router or anything else, it doesn't matter really, right? So you are going to have probably thousands and thousands of dollars already prepaid, or maybe you have had some kind of postpaid plan where they would just send you the bills, right? So in that case, if that scenario, and that should be the scenario for a production grade AI agents, because your production AI agent should not be stopped because it will impact your users. So in that case, you need to have some kind of protection mechanism. Now, when I talked about entropy, what I mean by that is generally when an API key is created, it will be like SK in case of OpenAI, and then there will be around 50 to 52 characters after that. So that means the possibilities of creating AI API keys are really, really huge. Like with 50 and 52 keys, if you do permutation combination, I don't know, it will be probably 2 to the power, I don't know, it will be, I don't know, 2 to the power 256, or if OpenAI is using 256-bit entropy, or if they're using 128 bits of entropy, that will be 2 to the power 128. And let's say if even millions of users are using OpenAI API, that means it's still 10 to the power 6 divided by 2 to the power 128, which is really, really minimum. So using a brute force method to hack your API key or to get your API key is really, really minimal. It's not impossible though, right? If an attacker have a lot of IPs where they can just do a brute force attack, it's not impossible, but yes, the chances are really, really near to zero that they will get your API key just by using brute force method. But brute force method is not the only method using which someone can get your API key. Let's say you have a big team and there could be some insider threats. It's not that I'm saying your team member will intentionally leak out the key, but it might eventually happen that they push the code and somehow the API keys get leaked, or they themselves have been testing some of their code in their local system and their local system got compromised, so your API keys got compromised. It can happen to yourself as a solo developer like myself. A lot of the time when I create videos, my API keys gets compromised, right? That's why I set a rule that I'm not going to hide the API keys from the videos. Rather, I keep the API keys open to the video so that I have that practice in my mind that I have to delete the API key or invalidate the API key after the tutorial. So what I mean to say is that there could be numerous ways that your API keys could get compromised and then it can be misused. Not just about losing money from your wallet, right? It's more also about, let's say your API key gets compromised and it is being used by a malicious actor for a malicious purpose. And then literally your business account could get suspended by the provider, right? Or you might just get legal notices. So there are a lot of risks when it's, especially if you are creating a production grade SaaS application. And that is why your API keys must be secure. But then you might say, oh, I'm bored of this lecture. Now show me how to do that, right? There are definitely few possible ways that I do consider in my SaaS that I'm creating, like this one I'm currently creating, this SaaS I'm doing as part of the course, and you will definitely have some video coming out very soon. But the thing that I consider to do, I'm going to talk about that this might not be the best possible way, but this could be some of the way to at least control or restrict a few of the misuse of the AI API keys. Before I go there, you might just ask me that why don't the AI API provider use authentication mechanism? Why they use API keys, right? If this is such a big problem, then the API provider should use some definitive form of, authentication, right? And the reason is because if you see the AI API system, those are meant to be real time, right? The way we are progressing, the API has to be near real time sending response. But if you add authentication mechanism in it, if you do multi-factor authentication or if you do any form of authentication, even if you just want some IP restriction or geo restrictions, that's going to actually introduce latency or delays into the processing of the AI API. So that is the reason why different providers don't do all of this authentication filtering and authentication mechanism into it. They add some kind of protection mechanism into the system so that their system don't get misused, but they don't necessarily add different authentication mechanism. And if I am an AI API provider, I would rather write a documentation about telling you to use the API keys properly rather than I implement something that will introduce more headache to provide the near real-time response, right? And that is one of the reasons, of course. And there could be many other reasons that AI API providers don't do necessary bits of authentication mechanism that you would otherwise see with different other APIs. If you use Google Map or any other such APIs that are really, really protected with tokens, auth to client ID secret and all these bits, right? You cannot do that with an AI API providers. Now, coming back to different mechanisms, how you should actually restrict it. So I'm just going to use this box here. I'm just going to write here the AI API key protection mechanism. One of the first thing that you should do whenever you are trying to create an API key with your provider is you should tie it down with an ORG or organization Most of the provider allow you to create organization like OpenAI and OpenRouter. If not organization, at least they allow you to create projects. So definitely from now on, create a project, and under the project, create the API key so that you have some kind of tracking the API key where it's been used going forward. The second thing that you should do is to restrict the API key with capabilities. So it is restrict API keys with capabilities. What I mean by that is, let me actually open the OpenAI platform and just to show you quickly. So if you come here and click the create new API key, you will see there is a restricted tab here. If you go there, you will see different type of APIs. Now, let's say you want to just do chat completions. So just enable the chat completion, because in most of the cases, what happens is the assistant APIs, for example, are a bit expensive, right, than your normal embedding API or chat completions. So if you do not need an V1 assistant, if you do not need to create threads, if you do not need to do fine tuning, just set it none, just set the model capabilities, and then just use it, just create it. And of course here you create a project and add the key. The third thing, the most important thing, and the must thing that I use in my own use case is use an AI API proxy. I really like LiteLLM, and this is not a promotional message or this is not a paid message, because this is an open source project. I have covered about LiteLLM before in this channel in much details, and if you want, I can cover many of their features because this project has really gone wild. There's so many things that I've added as a feature. I really love to use LiteLLM for my AI API proxies, for my production project or AI agents. So every AI agent that I create for my own use or the SaaS application that I am building, every AI API request must go through LiteLLM, because I have so much control that I can do there. I can do budgeting. And again, that's one of the points that you should also do budget. So you should definitely put a budget. If it's possible weekly, then monthly or yearly, but you definitely should set some budget and alert so that if somehow your AI APIs are being used more than your budget, you get alerted. It doesn't necessarily will block the AI API access for your users, but budget will actually alert you that it's been used or misused. So you definitely should set budget when you're using AI API proxy like LiteLLM, and also set alert. Now, the other thing that you must do, you should do rather, when you're using LiteLLM, you create a group of fallback. And what I mean by that is LiteLLM allows you to create groups of models. For example, in your application, let's say this is your application that needs OpenAI model, for example. Now you have OpenAI model here, and here that connects to your LiteLLM. So this is your application or agent that goes to your LiteLLM proxy. And in the proxy, what you should do is create a group for, let's say your application needs to access GPT-4o mini, let's say. So what you can do in LiteLLM proxy is create a GPT-4o mini model configuration, proxy configuration, and you can create two providers out of it. One, let's say that will go to your OpenAI as a provider, and the other you should connect is the OpenRouter. So both of them provide you the GPT-4o mini model. So essentially in the model grouping, you use, let's say, OpenRouter as a fallback LLM, and that gives you a bunch of benefits. First benefit is, if somehow OpenAI goes down, your application still will work because you have a fallback mechanism through OpenRouter. The second thing that it will do is you have the chance to roll over your API keys. So that's like roll over API keys. So what I mean by that is, let's say even in your live system, you can still go ahead and just delete your OpenAI API keys from the provider, from the platform, and just create another API key and come back in the LiteLLM proxy and set that. While you do that, your application still works because it will now connect to OpenRouter. So that means here you can create rule-based policies. So in the rule, you will say, if you get 403, go to the other provider. So That's how you can do that. This is possible, and this will not impact your application or agent. And the best part is, really the best part here, I'll just add it as point 8, is private API URL. And what I mean by private API URL is, as I was saying, is if you have been hit by a brute force attack by an attacker, that will probably be on the public APIs, right? OpenAI APIs or OpenRouter APIs, because those are publicly available. In this case, how you will design is your Light LLM proxy will be set behind your internet accessible firewall. So that means only your app, not even your app front end, mostly your app backend will know where to connect to the Light LLM proxy. So that means your Light LLM proxy endpoint will never be exposed to internet. And as a result, there is a lesser chance for an attacker to do any kind of brute force against your Light LLM reverse proxy, because that will probably will sit behind your firewall, because that gives an additional layer of protection. And the final bit is you can do so much with reverse proxies, any reverse proxy really, and using Light LLM, you can track the profanity use cases, you can do tag-based routing, you can do retries, fallbacks based on your own rule sets. You can save responses in cache to be able to not call the APIs, but rather serve it from the cache. Let's say if you're creating a deterministic application, so that means in a deterministic application, your AI API responses will mostly be similar for different users. And in that case, you do not need to necessarily call AI APIs every time, right? What you can instead do, use some kind of caching like Redis or something, integrate it with Light LLM, save your cache response in the Redis and serve it from there. It will be much faster and it will cost you much less. You can do different kind of logging, you can do tracing, and you can definitely do some MLOps operation. For example, if you want to track and analyze your model performance, and based on that you want to fine tune some other model, you can do all of these things really. Now I can talk about the Light LLM and what you can do about it hours and hours. I don't want to drag this video as much. If you really want me to cover the Light LLM end-to-end feature set and how to use it in a production grade scenario with the live use cases, let me know in the comments and I will definitely try and bring a video, because again, Light LLM video has been due for a long time in this channel. I have covered Light LLM almost a year back, and I am so glad to see that project have evolved so much. And I really like to cover that, as well as I am currently using Light LLM for the particular production application that I am creating as part of the SaaS course that I have launched. And the reason I am also bringing all this topic now publicly is because I'm closing down this particular SaaS course, as I will now focus on these particular SaaS applications that I'm making. And I will definitely love to cover this Light LLM video in details if you need it. Again, let me know if this video brings any value to you in the comments, and if you want to see more of this. And as I said, I would love to cover that. And thank you for watching. Please take care, and I'll see you on to the next one. Bye.